Boom, boom. Okay. Okay. This is Bridges for Music. Welcome to the Bridges for Music podcast. Would like to take this opportunity to thank our friends at Pioneer DJ for making this podcast possible. Pioneer DJ has been a committed patron of Bridges for Music from day one. For more information on how to get involved or apply for our programs, visit bridgesformusic.org. As an artist dedicated to social justice, Dope Saint Jude joins us in conversation live from her hometown, Cape Town, South Africa. As a result of her reality, she was forced to look for another way of seeking inspiration. So this meant listening to informative artists and adopting the duty to assist the next person. With her most recent work being licensed by Netflix and HBO to touring Europe each summer, she's gone from strength to strength, including joining the Bridges for Music board. Let's listen to Dope Saint Jude talk about how she remains dope. Welcome to Bridges for Music. I'm Yams. I'm a former alumni and now intern, and I do a lot of the podcasts. And so we knew you were coming and we're super excited just to get you and just to hear a little bit of, what's going on in your mind and who you really are, for people that maybe might have not met you, but just something nice and sweet for Pioneer DJ. They really are in support of this podcast and they like what's been going on. My last interview was with Kitty and CEO, so you're coming up next. Welcome. And I know you're born and bred in the Cape Flats, and I can understand that where you might have grown up, where would you have drawn your inspiration from? Because it's pretty tough to grow up in area. Like I, for myself, know I'm from Langa, and I know the history behind how it felt like to grow up in Langa. So, where did you draw your inspiration to kind of be an advocate in music and be different from the rest?
I think it started with the fact that my mom was a teacher. So I think I was largely protected from the reality of the Cape Flats. I wasn't exposed to gangsterism and all of that, even though it was very much in the community. My mom was a teacher. My dad worked in a children's home, and also my parents were very involved in church. So I was spending time in the library, spending time at church. And I must say that as a kid, spending time in the library, I would build worlds in my mind. I would imagine what life is like outside of the Cape Flats, because we didn't have a car growing up. We had to take a taxi everywhere or take a train or walk. I remember once walking to visit my auntie here in Langa, all the way from Matroosfontein, walking on a Sunday afternoon. So books were really an escape for me, and music was an escape for me, to imagine a different world. So that's really how it started, was this imagination by consuming other people's art and creations.
So speaking about reality, that was a key thing for me as well, because you actually are living in what's going on. But luckily for you, your parents tried to keep you away from that. But did you ever feel any responsibility to even though you don't really know how it's happening out there, but any responsibility to change the stigma around the place that you come from,
Yeah, 100%. I feel that in everything I do, I mention where I come from, because I think people have a very one-dimensional view of the disenfranchised communities in South Africa specifically. And we are multifaceted, we are interesting, we have ambitions, we have ideas. And I do feel a responsibility in the way I present myself.
Yeah.
But also even being involved in Bridges as a board member, to provide that perspective of someone who comes from the community that's being served.
Yeah, on the ground.
Yes.
Yeah. I appreciate the work that you do. I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot more that we see versus what you actually work for and what you've been doing behind the scene. But I just wanted to also get into. I've noticed, I had this conversation with CEO as well about, as artists, we kind of have this, especially female artists, we have this pressure about how do we present ourselves. And I've noticed that you also have a bold personality and you present that with your look. But how did you manage to kind of nurture that? I'm sure that for me, I know in my community, I had a lot of pressure of like, oh, the girls, this is how a girl should dress up in the community and all that. But how did you remain true to like who you really are and understand that you want to be present in your boldness?
You know, it's very complicated because there's so many layers to it, right? There's the level of being a woman, then there's a level of being a black woman, and then for me, growing in a house that intersects black and colored, and that's in South Africa's context is also very complicated when it comes to beauty standards. And then I'm also a queer woman, and so I always felt like I was on the outside, and it was a journey for me. I'll start with my hair. So I've got
Yes.
dreadlocks, and this was a fight with my mother. My mother really valued like straightening my hair, you know. And my mom was she grew up. She's a half Sotho woman, and she had her own issues with her hair texture and with her skin color that she projected and passed on to me.
you, yeah.
And it was like a real journey. But music actually got me out of it because the artists I admired, Lauryn Hill,
Yeah.
Tracy Chapman, they
Yeah.
all had locks. Lenny Kravitz had locks, and I was like, I want to be like them.
Yeah.
And so that was like the beginning of that journey. But parallel to that journey, I acknowledge that as women artists, how we present ourselves can be very important. But more importantly to me is how I present myself intellectually. Like I really put a lot of thought into what I say and how I communicate my ideas. I won't be naive and say that like the aesthetic doesn't matter. But for me, it's secondary. Like I want the aesthetic to communicate the political thought that's happening in my mind. And so that's why the hair is this way, because I rebuke Western beauty standards. That's why I have my tattoos and I wear, I dress, I gender bend when I dress, because from an intellectual perspective, I don't want to adhere to the status quo. So for me, it's like, how can I find that balance? It's not just about looking pretty. It's like, what am I trying to say here?
Yeah. And like on your point with hair, there's so many aspects in how I mean, guys, I feel like it's very easy for them, but for women, like there's so many aspects that can actually speak more than like what you're talking about. So it's very interesting for me that, you know, when you say your mom, you had an issue with your mom, and it's actually interesting that she has her own personal struggles that she had, and a lot of people don't even know what it means to project something onto the next person. So for you to have that like insight obviously has led you to be who you are and like be true to yourself. So one of the things, now that you've mentioned kind of being politically, not politically, but like mentally there and not just about what people see, I admire the work that you've kind of done in terms of being a socially, what do they call it? A social conscious artist. That is a big thing because a lot of people out there just want to be on stage, just want to perform, but don't really get down to like, what am I actually doing and why am I doing it? So I wanted to ask you besides you've mentioned you've grown up in a family that works in kind of social environments, but what else kind of motivated you and what did you want to see for yourself in that space?
So for me, it was always really important to, I think, have empathy. I think that's where it started, is like being able to put myself in someone else's shoes. And I think because my mom was a teacher, my dad worked in a children's home, and also just having a family with complicated racial dynamics, like you start to recognize suffering. You know, you see that like the status quo is damaging to the way that we are living, that my family is living. It stops us from being able to move in the world that we want to. And then I think added to that, like I have 4 brothers, I'm the only girl. So I've always been like this little feminist in my house, questioning why my dad gets the biggest piece of meat.
Yeah.
So like just, I think like seeing suffering and like not wanting that for myself and not wanting that for other people. And also I think my parents sent me to schools outside of the area. They sent me to like Pinelands. I went to Pinelands High School and I had to take a train from Bishop Lavis. Yes, I took a train from Bishop Lavis to Bonteheuwel to Langa and then to Mutual Station. And like just in that journey and then going to school with kids whose parents dropped them off in their BMWs, like, and feeling that inferiority, like I felt less than because we didn't have money for a car. We lived outside of where everyone else was living. So it just like lit a fire under me to want to change that for myself and for other people, because why am I not worthy of all the nice things that other people are worthy of? There is nothing inherently worse or lower inside of my spirit. And if you are a Christian, I use Christianity as an example, we believe that we are all children of God. And so by that virtue, we are all equal. And even if you don't believe in Christianity, I believe that by virtue of being human, we are entitled to the beauty of this world. And so I want that for everyone, not only for myself or for people who look like me, but for everyone, you know? And so that's really where it comes from. It comes from like a place of empathy. Yeah, that's it.
I can imagine that in this journey that you were going through at the time of like experiencing the hardship and inequalities, who did you look for? Not inspiration, but who could you kind of go home and be like, look, I'm tired of this. My dad is getting a bigger piece of chicken than me. I can't deal. What's our next step? Like, who did you? Because I'm sure that it might have been hard. You might have been criticized in your community and like the black sheep and whatever. Like, how did you deal with that? Who was there for you at that time?
It was books and music. So I read Toni Morrison. I was reading Maya Angelou, like these black, powerful women, like writing like inspirational poetry, phenomenal woman. That's me. And listening to Laura Neal, listening to Tracy Chapman, like that really was like my refuge. And like that's where I felt like it was a safe haven for me in the music. And I think that's why music is such a big part of my life, because so many musicians like helped me through difficult times. I remember even listening to Alanis Morissette, who's so different to my reality. She's a white Canadian punk rock pop star. But like her music was super angsty and like angry, and I felt this anger in myself, you know, and I recognized it in her. And I think like that's really also what drew me to music as a career, is like the ability to connect with people like across so many barriers. Yes.
So with the work that you've been doing in kind of advocating for equality and change, not only are you kind of educating yourself, but you're very passionate about teaching others. So for people that might not know, can you just kind of walk us through what your version of an innovative live presentation is, and what do you do when you have like one of those?
When you say, like, when you word it like that, I think it makes it sound like more fancy or like bigger than what it is. But like my approach to the way I present myself and the way I live my life is to be in service of others, because I've learned the hard way that the real joy is actually in making yourself a resource for other people. So like when I'm on stage, before I go on stage with my band, we meditate and we commit ourselves to being in service of the audience. We're not there for ourselves. We're going to enjoy ourselves, but we are in service of the audience. And so like, what does that mean besides like just having a good fun time on stage and making good music? It's like the intent behind it. Like, what is the intent behind the show? Like, what are we trying to communicate? Because I believe that music is very special, and we can communicate a plethora of things through music and through the performance of music. So yeah, I think going with that approach of like being in service, I think is innovative, because in this capitalist society, we're not taught to be in service of each other. And I think that like that's something that is different and maybe innovative.
Okay. I'm excited to maybe one day experience that, because I haven't actually seen you perform live. So one day is one day. And just like to the music. First of all, where did you get the name Dope Saint? Like,
Dope Saint Jude, I got. My second name is Saint Jude. So my full name is Catherine Saint Jude Pretorius. My parents were super Catholic, and Saint Jude is the saint of lost or hopeless causes. I think because my mom wanted a girl and she had 4 boys, and so I was the girl, and so it was like kind of a hopeless cause. I think she prayed to Saint Jude to get a daughter who ended up being gay. And so I just added the word dope to it, because honestly, I should have given it more thought, but I was in a rush to like make my music happen. So I was like, dope, that sounds cool. I'll just add it to my second name. And that's how I got the name.
and it's so interesting because you actually do follow your name in a way, because, like trying to manifest for a better cause and, being the only person that's, I feel like at the time that you were doing it, since you said your refuge were books and stuff, you were the only person out there fighting like with yourself against all these other people and inequalities and stuff. But back to the music, what is your favorite project, you could say, while you've been making your music?
I think like my favorite musical endeavor has been this last tour I did with my band. We toured around Europe and the Canary Islands. We were like traveling a lot, but that's not why it was special, because I've toured before. But because this was the first time where I prioritized like being in service to my band and like existing for them. And in return, they were in service to my music. And it was the most beautiful experience, like connecting with people that way. And 2 of my band members hardly speak any English. So it's like there's just a love there and a loyalty and a devotion we have to each other that we can't actually speak to each other in the same language. We have to like speak in broken language to each other. But like, what a fulfilling experience to like travel on the road with these people, get to know them, support their careers, they support mine. It was like one of the purest experiences that my music career has brought me. And I think it took a long time, because in the beginning of my career, I was like very insecure and I was dominated by ego. So it was very difficult for me to like hold space for other people, without feeling like that they're taking away from me, And I think as you mature and you get older and you do that kind of work on yourself, you become humble, and that humility like really helps in the way you interact with other people, because you make yourself small and you make yourself in service for them. And when you do that, it's like this amazing thing opens up. And so I've had the best experience with my band. I love them so much. We like get along, we love each other, the music's great. And I've just never had that, because the music industry is full of ego, and it can be complicated, it can be hard, and I empathize with that because I've been there and I'm still there sometimes. Sometimes I do operate from insecurity and ego, but with this experience, wow. And so going forward, I want to like replicate that with other people. Like, how can I be open? How can I be in support of you? Because I know if I'm in support of you, it opens up for you to be in support of me, you know? And I mean that honestly. I don't mean it in a selfish way. I mean it in a let's all win. Like, I want you to win so that I can win, but I also want you to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If you want to listen to these conversations live and have access to this incredible community, you can join us at our physical campus, the Bridges Academy in Langa, South Africa. A revolutionary learning space where you will find courses on music, entrepreneurship, film, DJing, and much more. For more information on how to apply, visit bridgesacademy.org. Speaking of like, my next question actually phases well into your answer. Talking about how back then you used to work from a place of maybe ego or insecurity, and you've done a lot of work on yourself, and that's like for me the most important thing an artist can ever do, because we are constantly giving to other people, and if you don't know what you're giving to other people, it gets lost in the mist somewhere. But I wanted to know more about your EP Reimagine, and talking about how, for me, it sounds like you kind of reimagined a way to work with your band now. But what was your journey like at that time, writing that EP or working on that project?
Yeah, so I wrote that. That's my first project I released in 2016, Reimagine, and it was full of hope. And I hadn't like traveled or done anything like that, so it was like really me putting out all this energy about like what I imagine for myself. And I wanted to reimagine my reality as someone who like had never traveled, and I people were laughing at me saying I want to make music. Like it was at that stage when like people like like, oh, like really. And I just like wanted to make music that would manifest that reality, because as I said to the students earlier, my friend Cindy told me that music is like casting a spell or saying a prayer. It's like a special message you put out into the universe. And so with that first project, I was like putting out my first signal into the universe about like where I want to be and who I want to be. And so that project transformed my whole life, like, and it's led to other things. And I keep that in mind now as I create, to remember like that I'm doing something special. Like when we engage with music, it's something like very sacred, it's something very special, and to not like take that very lightly. So think about like what I'm saying in my music, and like think about the energy I'm putting out with the music. Yeah.
So with Reimagine and your journey in that, and a lot of things coming from that, how did you manage to, like, with features and working with other artists that might have not thought, oh, what is she doing? The ones that actually felt like, wow, this is dope, this is cool. How was your process in like working with other people? Did you prefer to kind of like have your band and first mold what you've got, or were you very open to like features and?
I think in the beginning I was very insecure, so it was difficult for me to work with other artists because I believe that they were way more talented than I was, and I struggled to like see my own value and that me being different is my strength. I wanted to be like everyone else. And so in the beginning, it was like hard to collaborate, but that changed as I grew as a person, as I grew as an artist. I was able to like do that work on myself and be able to like really collaborate with people in a meaningful way. And I don't only mean that with the music, I mean like even business wise and opportunity wise, in friendships, like really opening myself up, because it took me a long time to learn that I'm not an island and that I can't do things like just in solitude alone. It takes a team to grow, and for you gotta cultivate that. And so like that's been a journey, and I'm still on it. And it's exciting because I learn more about myself, and I learn even more about other people, and it's extremely fulfilling.
So back in 2016, ever since you started like rapping and making music and writing, have you ever kind of learned how to produce and get familiar with, more technical stuff? And Where did you kind of draw that inspiration? Like,
Well, I taught myself to produce very early on in my career. My first project, Reimagine, I produced myself, but I will say I wasn't a strong producer, but I have like built my confidence around music production, and it's also been a journey and working with other producers, collaborating. When I went to London, I worked with an amazing producer named Pete Boxter Martin, who produced my last few projects. And like watching how he works and just being open to like learning and also not putting too much of a block between myself and the production, because sometimes you can think, oh, it's so technical and I have to have like, but you can learn those skills, you know. We have to have a growth mindset about it. Like, just because I don't know today doesn't mean that I'm not going to know tomorrow. I just got to learn, watch some YouTube videos and pick up the skills. Easy peasy.
with regards to like you producing for yourself and kind of being comfortable enough to make music that you actually let out there. I know for myself, I tried to produce. I'm like, I don't think people should hear this yet. How do you think, as females, we can regain that confidence? I don't know how guys do it, but for some odd reason, they're able to bounce off like ideas and all these softwares and all that information. How can, as females, create like better or safer spaces for that and to encourage like production within our circles?
Well, I think like as women, we are socialized to sometimes make ourselves smaller or to produce perfect products. And I think like maybe letting go of that perfectionist way of doing it, of doing things, because without sounding sexist, and maybe I preface that because maybe what I'm about to say might be sexist, but men have more freedom to produce mediocre work, and then they have the space to grow and learn. And I think women don't often have that space. We don't afford women the opportunity to like grow through, like to have the growing pains. We expect polished products. We put women on a higher platform. Oh, sorry, we hold them to a higher standard, I think, in my opinion. Even when I look at the music game now, particularly hip hop, I'm a fan of Megan Thee Stallion. And I look at like the way people treat her, the media, and how men react to her. And I think that people put her on, they judge her on a much higher platform than they would someone else, because she's exceptional. She's amazing. So really like creating the space for between each other to like put out work and give us the space to grow, give each other the space to grow. And I think that men are not only guilty of judging women too harshly. I think we judge ourselves harshly too. And so it's really like creating space for growth. That's what's really important, because we all start somewhere. And we need to have that growth mindset that just because today I suck doesn't mean tomorrow I'm going to suck. So, yeah, that's what I think.
Is that what kind of inspired in Dombi workshop? Can you tell us like a little bit of that?
Yeah, so Intombi Workshop is a project I worked on with Marion High. And it was like an arts program that we ran at the school. I'm still involved with the school, but on a different level. But yeah, it was the idea of like upskilling young people, but also just getting them in touch with their artistic side, because art is the creativity is linked to imagination, and imagination is so important as a refuge, but also as a source for creating, for world creating. And so for me, it's important that young people are in touch with their creativity and with their imagination, because that's like the starting point of transforming your world.
Yeah. It seems a lot similar to the work that's been done here at Bridges as well. How did you kind of come into play or kind of have the conversation with Bridges and join the board?
So it started a long time ago with my relationship with Nando's. So I was making music in Cape Town. I had music videos out there, and Nando's was looking for an artist to feature. And talk about like their music journey and all of that, because Nando's does a music exchange with artists in the UK and South African artists. So they liked what I was putting out, they liked my vibe, and so they asked me to be a part of that documentary. And so I started building a relationship with Nando's and with Kerry, who was the head of PR for Nando's. And we just kind of kept up that relationship. I'd done lots of work with Nando's, and Kerry is on the board for Bridges for Music, and Bridges for Music has a lot of sponsorship from Nando's. There's an involvement there. And so at one point they just asked me, actually, you know what actually happened? I worked with Ballantines, and Ballantines asked me to choose an organization to donate money to, and I chose Bridges for Music. And Bridges was like, cool, we really like Catherine, we like what she does, she's from here, and they invited me to join the board. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity. And yeah, I don't take it lightly, and I'm like, only been on the board for about 6 to 7 months, but I am very present and I'm engaged and I'm like ready to make stuff happen.
Awesome. Thank you for taking that responsibility and being part of it. We need more people like you there that are from South Africa but doing great work around the world. And I've got like a fun question to ask you. I mean, you're traveling a lot now. For me, it's like, I don't even know where you are based, but for me, it's like you're based all around the world. Where's your favorite place to perform? Like, where do you enjoy performing? And it's like you fulfilled all your dreams when you're there and performing, and the crowd is responding. Or where has your favorite performance been, like around the world?
I will say France, because like that was the first international show I did was in France, and my touring agency is based there, and the French audience has just been really welcoming of me, like unbelievably. And I've gotten so many like performance opportunities there. I've been to every single little town all through France. Yeah, it's like a point where I'm like kind of sick of croissants.
Yeah.
But like, I love the French audience. I think they're awesome. But of course, I love my audience here at home.
Yeah.
But if I'm thinking about it outside of home, I would say France. And I think maybe part of it is because I don't understand French. So I can't hear if anyone's saying something bad. So that's also a win.
Yeah, I can imagine. I wouldn't get sick of the croissants though, because oh my gosh, I like croissants. Yeah, and the pastries, I'm sure it's amazing. Like with all the up and down and the hustle and the bustle, like how do you keep sane? How do you from into this gig, into this studio, into this podcast, into like going between that and then getting home and then maybe losing Catherine a little bit and trying to get back to her? Like, what is your method or your mantra in that?
It's changed a lot over the years, because I used to be someone who liked being out on the streets. I used to party, like, you'd see me you can ask Roxanne sitting over here, my wife. We met on the party scene. I was like out all the time. And then when you start doing this kind of work where music is your job, you stop liking going out.
Yeah.
So I've become a very kind of like quiet homebody. I really enjoy being at home. I like cooking. After I'm on tour, I like to come home and eat like a hot pot of food, like but also creating a routine that's consistent when I'm traveling and when I'm moving, like having something that anchors me. And often that is like doing my morning practice, which is practicing gratitude, doing my affirmations, and then like doing some form of exercise. That really like gives me a sense of consistency. So no matter like where I'm traveling, there's something that feels familiar, because you're in different places. I also like on a personal level, I don't have an issue with drinking alcohol. I mean, I enjoy having a drink now and then or whatever, but I think like not drinking when I'm performing and not like engaging in like any stimulants while I'm performing, that also has really helped, because it like separates work and play for me. So I know when I'm working and I know when I'm there to perform and be there for the audience versus like when I want to have fun and have a drink, you know? That's been really important to like create clear divides and boundaries for myself.
Okay. That's so good because we also at Bridges are kind of taught about affirmations and gratitudes. And like I said earlier on, that, being an artist and giving people part of you, it's important to know how to get back to yourself because you can lose yourself and no one's going to be there to like get you back. You always have to be there for yourself. But yeah, in my closing question, I just wanted to know, can you tell us a bit more about what we can expect from Dope Saint Jude or what your future plans are, whether it be like in music or outside of music? Yeah.
You know, the world is really my oyster at this point. I am in a really great creative space. I am enjoying being in Cape Town right now. I've got like a few singles I'm releasing. I'm working on music for a video game with some of my friends called Team Laserbeam. They're releasing a video game and I'm writing some of the characters. I'm just being pulled in whatever direction like feels good for me and is comfortable for me, and I'm very lucky to be in a position where I can do that. Like I can just kind of like follow my passions right now. And so yeah, so it feels like the world is my oyster. I'm out here. This year I want to focus on my work with Bridges. I want to focus on my creativity, and I want to expand like my network in South Africa again. So just hopefully you see more of me and see like just good things. I hope I want to be in service of people. Like that's my new affirmation and my new mantra.
Yeah, that's amazing. I have really learned a lot from you. So you're definitely in service of educating me and anyone who's listening. I really appreciate your time, and it's been amazing to actually meet you. I've never met you before, and I feel like there's a lot of similarities that we share, and yeah, it's super inspiring. So moving forward, I hope you're able to continue to serve people. But yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, and I appreciate your like thoughtful questions. Like I really appreciate. I've been interviewed many, many times, and I always appreciate like thoughtful questions and like meaningful questions. You know, it's fun. It's like it's really nice.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as we do making them. Remember, if you'd like to attend any of these workshops live, enroll in any of our upcoming programs. To support the work we do, you can find more information on bridgesformusic.org. Please don't forget to subscribe, as we'll be bringing new inspiring conversations soon. Until next time,